Conditional logic is one of the most central concepts in all of computing. In fact, computers themselves work on a very simple but robust and powerful system of Boolean states, true or falses, on or off, go left or go right, power on, power off. Or in the actual circuitry of computers, is there any actual current flowing or is there not current flowing? These simple binary pathways are kind of the foundation of conditional logic, but we have the capacity to chain lots of these different types of conditions together in different ways to have really complex branching pathways of options in our code, despite there being very simple underlying rules. So what is conditional logic in and of itself? Well, maybe the best way to frame it in your thinking right off the bat is to think of a real world example. For example, let's say you went to a restaurant and you're like, I will only eat here if, now let's see how bad my art is. We got this beautiful hamburger. Okay, I'm looking for a hamburger. I'm also looking for a yummy drink of some kind, maybe the straw. Okay, and I'm looking for, oh man, I don't have to draw this, a slice of pie for dessert. A nice, big, yummy slice of pie. Okay, so you go to a restaurant and you're like, this is what I want. I will eat here if you have any of these. So if you have this one, or this one, or this one, anything will do. I'm peckish. I just want a little treat. And you go and you ask, and you first ask, do you have a burger? And if they say no, then you ask, you got a yummy drink, maybe a milkshake? No. Okay, do you have a pie? No. So in this case, if they said no to all of them, I'm leaving the restaurant. Or if any of them are true, I'm going to stay and I'm going to eat. So I have kind of two potential pathways. I either leave or I stay, depending on the content of this conditional situation. Now, in this case, it's really flexible, the conditions, because there's three options. I only need one of them to come to pass for me to stay and eat. But what if, instead, I had a situation where I was wanting a full meal deal? I want these conjoined with ands. I want a burger and a milkshake and a pie. Well, in that case, I could be disappointed a lot more easily. You have a burger? Yes. Milkshake? Yes. Pie? We're out. I'm out of here. So depending on these pieces of connecting logic, how everything kind of combines together, and the way the logic is expressed, it might be dealt with in different ways, but the underlying reality is that there's just two outcomes. I either leave or I stay. But of course, there's more complex situations and scenarios. So let's take a look at kind of how we generally represent a conditional situation. We have a point that might be reached in our code where we have a branch. Maybe we have the option where we say, well, I asked the person at the restaurant, do you have a burger? I should have left my thing here. I'm going to say, has, write a B. Let me write a B. This will be clear. You have a burger with the B, or you don't have a burger without the B. Maybe I'm in a picky mood where I say, if you have the burger, I'll stay. So in this case, I'm done. I found what I want. But in this case where I don't have the burger, I'm now like entering into another branching point. I'm like, okay, if you don't have a burger, do you have a milkshake? Or do you not have a milkshake? There's a binary set of options, another pathway to follow. Well, if you do, then I'm going to stay. And if you don't, then in that previous example, I still have another pathway to follow, another binary system to look down. Do you have a piece of pie or do you not have a piece of pie? And if they do have a piece of pie, I'm staying. Or if they don't, I'm out of here. So I have a more complex set of logical pathways, but at the core of it, I just have a bunch of individual branches that have to be assessed one at a time. And when we're learning about conditional logic, we have to keep in mind that when we're examining conditions, it's either going to have a true or a false outcome. If it's true, it's going to proceed on to whatever the desired outcome is. And if it's false, it's going to kick us along to the next option or just fail the whole check in the first place and boot us along to the next part of the program, or maybe even end the program altogether. So at the core of conditional logic is checking if things are one way or the other. And at the core of the way that we write logic in our code is through if statements. We say if a condition, and if a condition is true, then we run whatever the result is. And if it's false, we move past the result, we don't do it, whatever the result would have been, we move on to the next thing. Maybe if it's a standalone, we just are done. Or we could also potentially have something called an else if, or an elif in Python, where if this fails, we have a backup option. And what if we have a whole bunch of these? Like let's say we have like 37 different foods that we're looking for, but the restaurant's just out of stock of everything. And so you say, if you have burger, I'll eat, we don't. If you have milkshake, I'll eat, we don't. Pie, we don't, blah, 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 all the way down the list. You finish the whole menu, they don't have anything. You could end things up with an else. Finally, if every other condition hasn't been met, I will just, do you have any old, gristly, yummy, crunchy bits of like breakfast food tucked like that fell behind the stove? Like I'll just eat those little, they're delicious little crunchy things. I just want them so bad, I'm willing to eat it off the back of the stove. And they say, we actually just cleaned our kitchen, we don't have any, and you're really sad and you leave. But you can have these final situations that encompass the remainder of all the infinitude of options. We have all the conditions we're looking for, otherwise any other situation will result in this condition. The way that you write these conditional statements are slightly different in Python and Java. Branch off where you've chosen and enjoy learning a bit more about how that programming language implements conditional logic.